Hey, it's time for Climbing Culture Daily. I'm Rhonda, where community, commentary, and culture collide. And so today we're going to talk about three mistakes people make in community engagement. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks and things to learn, especially as I have had this journey of making all kind of mistakes in working in community. So stay tuned. So, first, why this topic? Why now? More than ever, we'll need community. Community is medicine. I run a nonprofit here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and have been for the past 18 years, and have seen so many folks who want to engage in community but make some very interesting and sometimes very damaging mistakes. So, I want to share some of those key mistakes. The first one being thinking you're important. Ego is the drug of the self centered, but growth requires you to be uncomfortable, to kill your ego. That is key. Um, So, one of the big things that happens when people want to start engaging in community um, is centering themselves in the work. It is actually an easy thing to do. Um, it's a very easy thing to start thinking you're a savior to community. But that comes with how you're approaching community work. Um, do you think that this community would not be able to resolve the issues that they have without you? That you are the center and the be all for resources? Um, these are actually things that come up, unfortunate, unfortunately. And one of the big things is to always check your ego, always check your motivation for why you're doing the work. Um, I will give an example of my therapist telling me I was ego tripping. I was really challenged with my health. This is pre COVID, so technology wasn't popping. People weren't using Google Hangouts back then to make sure that people were involved and could participate in meetings, right? And so I was really frustrated. I was really sick. I had fibromyalgia and I couldn't get to meetings. And I was telling her how frustrated I was about not making it to some of these meetings. And her statement to me was, wow, your ego is really big. You don't think that they can resolve whatever things that's coming up in those meetings without you. And at first I was taking it back and I was like, I always check my ego. And that's not what my motivations were. But it helped me to understand that I don't have to be in all the rooms all the time. Um, and that, yes, I do offer something to whatever issue, but I'm not the end all be all. And that community and other organizations and other people will come together and they will also be able to address whatever issue that arises. So don't think you're the it. Sometimes you see this even on social media, how people talk about the work that they're doing in community seems very centered on them and not actually the output and the impact that they've made. So understand who you are and understand the resources and the experience that you bring to the table, but you're not as important as the community that you're serving. Don't center yourself. Um, Check your ego. If you're ego tripping, then you're going to cause more harm. And the whole thing about community work is to do no harm. So remember that. Number two, The community doesn't know what it needs. I have heard this before. I have been in community meetings. I have been with pastors and preachers and organizations and community activists who really have a point of view that will say that the community doesn't know what it needs. Actually, they're very clear about what they need. People know what resources they need. The issue is connect connecting them to the resources. That's all it is. That's all a lot of this is do I know where to get diapers? Miss Lady needs some diapers. That's the connection. That's community work. It really is exchange of information. And the biggest thing that you can do is get help the community members understand their social capital. That within the community are resources. So, for example, what social capital looks like is when the rich dudes go to play golf, right? It's really not about golf. It is a business deal. It is saying, I have this, you have that, let's come together and then make it happen. And what we can do as community members and community leaders, and however you want to identify yourself, um, is to help people to connect to resources and connect with each other. So if I have extra diapers, I can give Sister Girl down the street some extra diapers. Or if I have some extra food, I can give Miss Jones some extra food. So it's not about us being um, all things to all people or gatekeeping the resources, but it's helping community to uplift their power and understanding that they too are part of resolving some of the deficits, the under resourcing situations that are happening in our communities. Um, they have the solutions. And sometimes it's kind of helping to identify those kind of things. But our communities understand, our residents, our neighbors, our people can identify what is happening and also can provide answers to resolve some of those issues. It's just being under resourced or under connected, right? Lack of connectivity. They may know if I could get this done, then this will resolve that issue. So, what you do as the community person is saying, wait a minute, I do know how to get you into that class, and I do know how to help you resolve that issue. Um, but please understand, the community members are very clear about what's happening in their communities. Um, but because of gatekeeping, because of the way that organizations, nonprofits, churches, etc., engage and pounce on communities sometimes, um, it leaves our residents, our neighbors, feeling a mistrust. So don't underestimate what the community knows and what resources are actually still in that community. Sometimes it's helping people to understand how to identify what those resources are. And last but not least, you do not have to create a nonprofit to do community work. You don't have to become a organized body um, to do this work. In I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and every person you talk to is has a nonprofit. It is unbelievable. Um, One of the major things that people don't understand is nonprofits is a business. You're starting a business. You're organizing your grassroots effort in such a way that is a business. And you have to come with that energy and that thought process. And if that is not what you really want to do, then don't do it. You can still help and serve your community. You just have to do it in a different kind of way. Nonprofits are so heavily grant reliant sometimes, and there are so many organizations going after very small pots of money. I mean, that literally is the business model, right? You have a program and you want to reach a certain group of people. And so you identify a funding source, you write an application, and they can say yes or no. And so it takes a whole lot of innovation, diversifying your funding, a different way of thinking about service and serving community members. So, do you want to start a business? Is what you need to think about. A business that has a board of directors, staff, payroll taxes, overhead, health care, all those things that come to running a business is there in the nonprofit. And so, really think that through. Some organizations really do, in groups, thrive at being grassroots and can get a lot of work done. It really does take in being strategic in your partnerships without formulating the nonprofit and getting the 501c3. If you are going in that route, you need to really plan that out, especially as a founder. And I am a founder. And I went many years with not getting paid from the organization, going through a lot of board members, trying to build trust with funders who don't think you have the capacity. And we'll talk about that in another video about capacity building, and that also being a tool to keep certain nonprofits from growing. We'll talk about what that looks like. So you have to really do a deep dive the same way you would if you wanted to start a for-profit, right? Do you want to make those sacrifices? I'm sitting in my home office now, you know. Do you want to go through all those things to be able to be of service to your community? May or may not have to do it. I know organizations who run, I should say, grassroots projects, so you guys will be clear, who said, no, we're not going to establish a 501c3, and they run food pantries. They work in partnership with 501c3s for fiscal, to be a fiscal agent and those kind of things. But they decided that they really wanted to put the effort and service in the work itself and not the organizational structure and building up the business model and all that kind of stuff. It is a lot of work. So don't make the mistake of running and starting up a nonprofit, getting your articles in a corporation and doing all that if you're not very clear about how you're going to fund it, support it, and drive it. And is there not another nonprofit already doing the work, or multiple organizations doing the work? So do your due diligence in making sure that happens. You know what I'm saying? But it's not necessary. So think about it. So, what did I just talk about? First, check your ego at the door. Don't ego trip just because you have, connections and community. Don't center yourself. Don't center yourself. That's how you're going to lose trust. The end game to this work are people. So people can sniff out bull crap. So do not center yourself. Don't make yourself the most important thing. Don't be the gatekeeper of all things. Okay? Next, what we got? Community. understands what's happening in their neighborhoods. They know what's going on. They know who's doing what and why they're doing it. They understand how poverty happens. They get all those things. What you bring are resources and resource navigation. Hey, go over here. There, this is. Hey, let me help you bring. Let's bring some money in community. You're helping the community better understand how to resolve issues and problems, right? Either it's personal, it's neighborhood based, or it's a larger community. But don't assume they're not clear about how they got into that situation, how their neighborhood got in that situation, how that larger community has gotten there. Some people got long memory. They remember when, there used to be a factory down the street and no longer a factory, so jobs are gone. They are very clear about how the drug use of the 90s has impacted their communities of today. They know these things. I hear people all the time that act like community doesn't know how to resolve its own issues. No, it's a lack of resources. It's a lack of, getting money in those communities. There's a lack of understanding there's a lot of social capital that's in that community. And so uplifting folks to empower themselves and how they can be a part of the solution. So don't assume that when we walk into these communities that maybe, like I said, under resourced for a various number of reasons, that they don't get it. They get it. And so you have to decide how, what you're bringing to the table to make sure that how they've identified the issues and the problem is getting addressed. They're the center. You're just there to help. And lastly, how are you going to do the work? How are you going to do the work? Are you going to start a nonprofit? That's fine. I'm not saying don't. Just saying understand. Board of directors. Today I got to do bank reconciliations. Got to write a couple of grants. I have to work with staff. I got overhead, all the things. Are you ready to start a business? No? Okay. So how are you going to do the work? When I was starting my nonprofit, in the early stages, some organizations would write grants with us in mind, and they liked our programs, and they would funnel the money, and get us the money so we can do some of that work. So there's different ways talking with other grassroots organizations and looking at how you can get to community. There are so many people who do dynamic work who never really get the praise, who never have ever started a nonprofit. But man, they're feeding kids. They're getting, like I said, getting diapers and this and that and things happening in their community without ever forming a formal organization. So really do your research, talk to organizations. I would say talk to small to mid-sized organizations because that's where you're going to see all the bumps and the bruises. Just saying, it ain't easy. But all in all, understand it is important that we all see ourselves as a part of the solution, right? Like knowing your neighbors and understanding what resources you have to offer. Empathy is still something we all need to have. It's very hard right now. They literally are telling us that that's ridiculous to have empathy. But the key to all community work is always being empathetic and really understanding who you are in this engagement with community.